Hello, fellow human animal earthlings. I'm Carrie Freeman. I'm a communication professor, activist, author of this book, The Human Animal Earthling Identity, Shared Values Unifying Human Rights, Animal Rights, and Environmental Movements. I've been working on this for about 5 years, and it's been published with the University of Georgia Press in 2020. I just wanted to make this video to tell you a little bit more about what you might gain from engaging with this book and its ideas. First, who is a human animal earthling? You are, and I am. Well, we all are, although he's not. He's also not interested. He's a canine animal earthling. But we all are human animal earthlings by the sense that we are humans and animals and earthlings. But whether or not it's part of our identity depends on how much we see these groups as part of our in-group, part of our community. So to say that you are a human animal earthling and that you identify with that means like, okay, I'm a member of the human race. I'm not just my nationality, my race, my gender, my religion. I'm a Homo sapiens. And also, I'm a member of the animal kingdom, and that hasn't been comfortable for most of us to admit because the concept of being an animal has been so demonized and it has been deployed in racist ways that have put people at disadvantage on purpose. So can we recapture the notion that being part of the animal kingdom is something impressive, something to be proud of? And then the earthling component just says that we are members of this particular planet, and there's something kind of humbling about it to say that we're one species among many and one individual of one species among many individuals of many species, millions of species on the planet. So it means that I have an environmental identity, I have an identity for animal protection, and I have a human rights oriented identity as well. And why is that needed? Why did I feel like I needed to write the book? Um, Part of it is just the fact that I see so many, I'm an activist myself, and I see so many social movements. Most of them, they're nonprofits and they're all kind of struggling to gain momentum. And not that they're not doing a good job, but I feel like they need more support, especially when the common opponents that they go up against might be powerful governments, multinational corporations, the whole economic system that's not set up to value life and to protect. So there's a sense that in a climate crisis, in a mass extinction, in a globalized world where there's a lot of divisiveness and exploitation and injustice, including enslavement of humans, actually, still going on, then there's a lot that the social movements need to support each other on and be allies for each other. So that's actually the point of the book. And the book's tagline is expanding our sense of self to save the world in which we live. Because on a personal level, there's the sense that if we care about all of humanity and see ourselves as part of the animal kingdom and are proud to be part of nature, then we're going to care about all those things. They're part of our in group. We're less likely to criticize them or see them as other or objectify them. But the book is not really just about personal growth. It's really about social growth. So it's looking at how social movements can be a key part of cultivating a human animal earthling identity by putting these values out into the world in all their campaigns. And that means that they're helping each other. They're not just saying like, oh, I'm a civil rights organization, so I'm just going to focus on that and never mention what's happening to non-human animals or never mention the environment unless it affects the group I'm working for. The idea is that all social movements would be allies of each other. And so I studied all kinds of values that are put forth in human rights and animal protection and environmental campaigns and found where they overlapped, and looked at also some scholarship of cross-cultural values and tried to think about ways we can come up with a list, which I have in the last chapter of the book, of what a human animal earthling identity would mean and what kinds of values could be promoted in social movement campaigns for any cause, and framed in such a way that is more biocentric, more life-centered rather than just human-centered or anthropocentric, so that they apply to so many other species and not just ourselves or our group. Who might like to read this book and learn from its ideas? I would say anybody who cares about social change, so progressive activists and philanthropists and students of these ideas. Like if you study communication, environmental studies, race and gender studies, decolonial studies, sociology, social movements, social psych, ethics. And it's published with an academic press, UGA Press. It's got over 250 sources, many of them scholarly, but I also wrote it in an accessible way so that it makes sense for anyone. And what are you going to learn from the book? What's in the book? It starts out, first of all, just explaining, use my copy that I've got all my marks on here, why it makes sense for social movements to band together and why identity and values are actually the core components of social change, especially altruistic values, a sense of caring about others. Then there's literature and thoughts on identifying common values between different social movements. So I'm actually looking at speciesism and racism and sexism and human rights and environmental ethics and trying to find places where they overlap, and also sources that say that they need to support each other because one type of oppression has parallels to the other and that we're all impacted in many ways. Then there's a chapter on post-humanist philosophies challenging the human-animal dualism. So this is, I feel like, the core thing that I need to address is the fact that it's usually the animals that get kind of swept aside if we ever talk about building coalitions. Like they're the ones that are the least important, but we need to save the environment and always protect humans. Well, other sentient beings, deserve protection. And so the notion that humans are so separate from animals and above animals is really the core issue that needs to be addressed. Then I did a pilot study years ago where I was looking at human rights charters and human rights declarations, as well as animal protection declarations and environmental kind of earth charters, and looked for common values in those. And then I came up with 4 basic categories that I used throughout the book, which was values that support life, values that support justice and fairness, values that support responsibility, and values that support unification. And so, so that's the pilot study. And then I went in and studied, there's different chapters on what human rights organizations appeal to, what values animal protection organizations appeal to, and what values environmental protection organizations appeal to. And so I studied 16 groups. And so that is the group CARE and Human Rights Watch and Anti-Slavery International and Amnesty International. And then you've got animal protection organizations like PETA and the International Fund for Animal Welfare, World Wildlife Fund, Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, Animals Equality. And then we've got 6 environmental groups like 350.org, which is the climate group, and Oceana, the Nature Conservancy, of course, Greenpeace, and Rainforest Action Network, Friends of the Earth. And so I'm looking, and I have all these different charts in here. There's just a lot of charts and tables of different values that I'm categorizing. And then I have a chapter where I overlap, I find the commonalities between the values. And then I really like chapter 7, finding common ground, chapter 8, actually, insights from interviewing activists. So that I did interviews with 19 people. Many of them are from those organizations that I mentioned, either the CEOs of the organizations or a communication person. So there might be some names you recognize, like Ingrid Newkirk from PETA, Frances Moore LePay from the Small Planet Institute, Captain Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, Mark Tercek, who was the past president of the Nature Conservancy, Mustafa Ali, who's a big environmental justice activist who used to work with the Environmental Protection Association. And so there's some groups, there's some activists that were from the organizations that I studied, and then I added a few more activists, and so there's 19 people that I talked to that represent lots of different types of social movements, and asked them for insights about how all the social movements could work together, and where are the values kind of overlapped and were shared, and which ones were most important. And then all of that culminates in the final chapter, recommendations to cultivate a human animal earthling identity. And there's a lot in that chapter, because it's looking at it is a table of all the different ideas. And you can see that also at humananimal-earthlings.com, the table of the human animal earthling values in those 4 categories I described. And there's virtues that go along with those. And then ideas for how social movements can kind of deploy them in campaigns that build around fairness and compassion and empathy and support for life and unity. And so then I'm also looking at missed opportunities that the groups had where they could have supported each other and didn't. And then on the opposite side, I show you times where a certain campaign really ignited concern for all different types of species, and that represented more of a human animal earthling approach. So it's a lot about how to be allies for different social movements. It doesn't mean that you can't work on one particular cause. It just means that you're going to put it in context of lots of different other groups and individuals who are also affected, and you want to show some respect for them as well. So that's really kind of at the heart of that. And the tag, I'll leave you with the Human Animal Earthling motto, which is share our home planet, support life, take care, and play fair. In conclusion, I hope you can take these ideas and employ them in your own social change work and embody them in your personal life. And you can find out more at the website humananimal-earthlings.com, and social media is at Human Animal Earthlings. Thank you, and take care of yourself and others, including other species. Bye.